All right, here we go. I see somebody in the chat saying Jones is late. I am still in 2023. And also, for what it's worth, actually, let me turn these lights on. It's a little rude to show up right on time to a party. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody is having fun. All right, so I'm glad to see that there's people already here. I'm not sure if I have Anki on this computer. I do like to use flashcards. I may or may not use them. I see. Why does the flag say California Republic? That's the place that I can go and speak Farsi. So it's a mashup of the flag of the Republic of California, which is the bear and the star, and some of the older flags of the history of Iran, which tend to have a lion with a sword. I chose not to put a crown because that's like needlessly contentious, but I thought it was a nice little mashup. Sound check, video check. All right. Happy New Year, everybody. I see mod punctuality. All right, bear. Like I said, I don't think I have Anki on this computer, so I probably won't be making flashcards. I'll do that sometime soon. But I'm going to keep going with the study of Farsi. So let me open up my textbook. By the way, I have about 8 weeks from when I started, which is last week, to when I intend to use some Persian. So we'll see how this works out for me. But I looked at the colloquial Persian textbook that I've been working through, and it's got, I think, 17 chapters. Now, I skipped the first chapter, which was like letters and sounds and stuff. And so that's 2 chapters a week. That is really, really doable. So I'm going to keep trying to go at that pace. I'm going to review some of the stuff that I've already seen, and I'm going to obviously talk about that. And then I'm going to also see if I can maybe make a little bit of progress. So let me see. I opened this in the wrong... Oh, no, I didn't. I like that. Okay, I opened this in Adobe, but I kind of like that. Also, hi, y'all. Hi, everybody. Bienvenue. Welcome. Brachim habayim. Somebody should tell me how to say welcome in Farsi. Yesh li kos cafe. I have a treat here, so I am pretty much ready to go. Pulling up my Persian. This is a little too big on the screen, so I'll share it with you once I get it fitted right. But this is like, I'm looking in Adobe rather than Preview, and it's like, it's a lot. It's really big. Let me drop the size here. That's better. Not perfect, but it's better. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen once I go to the chapter I want to go to. I've done chapters 1, 2, and 3. Chapter 1 was just letters and sounds. I can show you. This is what chapter 1 looks like. I believe I should have a link in the description if anybody wants to buy this textbook and follow along. I'm really enjoying it, like really, really enjoying it. So chapter 1, like I said, I skipped a lot. Let me put myself here. Here I am. Chapter 1, I really, I already knew most of it. Didn't bother, like, this would be a very boring live stream, I think. But chapters, let's see if I can, how I want to skip. I'm not sure that I actually like Adobe for this as much. Oh, glad you came. What is it? Khosh Amadid. Of course. Khosh Amadid, and probably colloquially Khosh Amadin. Sorry, Khosh Umadin. Khosh Umadin, I'm guessing. So, bienvenue, welcome, Khosh Amadin, Umadin. I guess plural, Khosh Umadan. Umadan. And let's go. So I did chapters 1 and 2. That's a little bit of like, how are you, hello, all that stuff, family questions. I think one of the things that I pointed out last time that I was really excited about as I kind of continue through here is the possessive endings. Yeah, let's see. Down here at the bottom of the screen. Oh, I need to make it continuous scroll. This is what I get for changing how I'm approaching things. Anybody know continuous scroll in in Adobe? Well, bottom here you have the root word, right? And then you have these endings. Let me get my pen set up so I can do that. I have a space for a cookie or a space for a pen, so excuse me for a moment. But if you haven't had a snack, you should eat. Have something to eat. You're looking a little thin. All right. All right. Cookies, ruglach, it's important. I'll try not to make mouth sounds into the microphone unless some of you are into that, in which case that'll be a different live stream. All right. I see in the chat it's a kind of aggressive but doable pace I'm into as well. Yeah, it's, you know what? I feel like I'm going to start hitting a wall with vocabulary. I like to just kind of outsource the thinking there. And honestly, what I should do right now is probably talk a little bit about language learning because there's a lot of misinformation out there. I'm going to start making some videos specifically about learning a language. Probably at the beginning of the year, I'll make a, best way to learn a language in 2024. But there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of well-meaning people who have learned a language or two or three who then think that what they do is the best, and it's not the best. They're learning well despite themselves and then peddling it to others. Everybody loves Stephen Krashen. Krashen is not the be-all, end-all of language learning, and I think it's really important to be aware that there are some flaws with his approach. There are some criticisms of his approach, and there's a whole world of language acquisition research out there. And he is just a part of it. So it's one of those things like, if you come to me and you say Stephen Krashen is the be-all, end-all of language learning, then I may want to know which other names in second language acquisition have you read? What are their ideas? How do they relate to his? If you don't know any of that stuff, then it's time to dig in a little bit more to language learning. Okay. Cookie. I see it's entertaining. Funny that those possessive endings have a lot of similarities with Finnish. Yeah, which is not related. All right, use iPhone as a webcam. No, thank you. So we have this. I love this. The is vowels in hiatus, just kind of collapsing together. But you have really, we can say a. Oh man, handwriting on a device like this is always annoying. A plus. A plus, or sorry, yeah, I'm saying the letter E like A plus T, plus sh, plus then MT sh again, but with un as a plural marker. So a lot of fun stuff there. Very, very clear pattern, which I really like. All right, let's see. How do I want to do this? I want to scroll. Okay, so I covered some possessives before. Some demonstratives, also like who does this belong to, and so on and so on. What I then did over the course of the week was, one, review all of this stuff, and two, kind of plow ahead. Now, here's the thing. When I said I should talk about language learning, let me take a moment and talk about language learning, and then I'll talk a little bit more about Persian. So actually what I'll do right now, again, is just make myself full screen and talk to you about language learning, because this is something I didn't get into linguistics specifically for learning a language, although I kind of did. Not a great way to get into academic linguistics. It's not the best approach that you can take. Academic linguistics, that is. But there's a lot out there around language learning. And I think a lot of times, like when people say, okay, I studied in a classroom and it didn't work for me. I see, Zevel, when are you going to do Hebrew? I'm actually... I'll get to that in a second. It's happening, but I'll get to it in a second. So there's a lot around language learning where people say like, oh, I studied in a classroom, but I didn't learn. I remember when I took French in high school, what happened was the teachers had a textbook. They taught out of the textbook. The textbook had a bunch of grammatical words that I didn't know because I hadn't really learned them in English class. And they said, now memorize these. And they gave me a list of words and they said, memorize these words. I have a vivid memory, like a sense memory, like, Proust biting into a Madeleine sense memory where I could write a whole novel about it, of trying to memorize the parts of a motor vehicle. And I remember like klaxonner, and I remember, it was like little pieces of it here and there. But what I don't remember from that exercise is the words that I was trying to memorize. And the thing is, nobody tells you how to memorize. Nobody tells you how to actually learn something where you're going to be able to use it. And so when you go to study a language, you're told like, here's the words, now memorize them. Sometimes it's on the page where it's like just, you don't even hear it. So the best ways to do this are one, actually with audio. Language is a spoken phenomenon. The writing is secondary always for every language. Most languages in the world are still not written down at all. But that's a sort of separate issue. Writing is a brilliant technology. It's a tool that we can use and use to our best advantage. And then the other part is that it's something that memorization is different from analysis. Memorization is different from recognition. You have to forget things. You have to forget them over and over and over again. People talk about the forgetting curve. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. But the idea is that, it's the process of having something at the tip of your tongue where you just almost can't get it and then being reminded, or making a mistake and then being corrected, that allows you to then make those stronger neural connections and actually learn something. So part of the process of learning is repetition to, in my case, and I think for the case of many people, especially if you have something like ADHD, not necessarily for everybody who has ADHD, but not necessarily only people who have ADHD, but it's to the point of like excruciating boredom. And that's not fun. People don't tell you that. They say you're going to have fun, you're going to learn English in 3 months, you're going to be amazing. And what I find is like for me to actually be able to generate something, I have to recognize it so well that I can generate it, right? But we don't think about how you do that. So to hear something over and over and over and over and over again, maybe that suffices. Maybe it gets to the point where it just worms its way into your ear. But often it's like actually having to generate it. Now, the other part of this is when people talk about comprehensible input, that's an idea for a way that you can teach with immersion, primarily. And a lot of people kind of misconstrue the idea. So they're like, well, I'm just going to read a bunch of simple books and there's not that much that's beyond my level. So there's like whatever my level is plus one. I learn a new thing because I can figure it out from the context. That's fine, but that's not a way of memorizing the material that you've learned, nor being able to generate it, nor being able to interact with people or like understand it in different contexts. And if you look into the literature on language learning, there's a hierarchy of things that people have challenges with, right? If you watch these YouTube sort of polyglot videos, one of the things that I've noticed is that the more advanced material that non-native speakers of any given language struggle with, and that's in the academic literature on language learning, the things that are a little bit more advanced, the things that are a little bit more challenging, you never, ever hear these in the I'm a polyglot who learned, I'm speaking 25 languages on YouTube. You never hear this stuff. And it can be things like what tenses you use in like coordinated clauses. So like in French, call me when you arrive, right? The when you arrive part, that'll be in the future in French, but not in English. You never hear this stuff. You just don't hear it. You don't hear complex like subordinate clauses. You don't hear like negation happening in certain ways that's a little bit more challenging and unusual. What you hear is discussions of like, I always wanted to learn French because, whatever it is, or whatever the language is, like I mentioned Chinese because I like Chinese food. You get that kind of stuff. You get, how did you learn? Oh, I taught myself. But you don't get like complicated discussions of things that require a lot of vocabulary. You don't get things like, coordinated clauses that require a little understanding of the tenses. I just don't see any of that. And I sort of obsessively watch these videos because I'm waiting for somebody to do it. I'm waiting for somebody to use some like actual complicated language to say, oh, I went from A0 to C2. It's like, you're not using any C2 structures. So how would I know? You just sound confident. You have good pronunciation. But that's it. So I think the idea is to really understand the structures. I like to analyze structures. That's the way I'm wired. And then separate from that, you got to beat it into your head. And that part is less fun. That part can be a little annoying. One of the ways that I like to do it is I like to go back and forth among different topics. And so as I was reviewing this, I've been working my way forward and backward through the textbook and through the vocabulary. So I look at something, I listen to something, I go back and, do some of the exercises, then I move on to the next one, then I move back to the previous one, then I move to the one after that, and I'm just seeing it over and over and over again. Ultimately, what I'm going to do probably in the next live stream is build myself a useful Anki deck. You don't have to use Anki, you don't have to use flashcards at all, but some way of repeating and memorizing. That's actually one of the things that I do like about Duolingo for the languages that they have, is that They build in a lot of repetition, and they're really good about bringing it back. Other software obviously does this. Someday I'll make a video about why Rosetta Stone version 2, the like janky old 90s software, is like the best thing in the world, even though it's basically impossible to get your hands on now. But it was just an underappreciated gold mine for like made by linguists who had free reign, and just a gold mine for being able to review a tremendous amount of vocabulary, a tremendous number of structures organized in a way where you could see it. But it's gone now, and it was misunderstood in its time. So this is let's see, chapter 3, I guess. Party game. Who am I? Obviously, I like to skip the writing. I know how to navigate the letters in Persian, so I'm not worried about the abjad. And this had some fun vocabulary. Oh, you have the Persian version of Old Rosetta Stone? I may have to dig out an old computer and hit you up and see if I can like buy it from you or something, like black market Persian. I see this is the deep end of YouTube linguistics, the hardcore stuff, the easy ways have already gone home to watch other streams. Exactly. We're going hard. All right, so this is, they have a fun little game here. They say, we're going to do a party game. So it's all the same stuff. Where are you from? What's your nationality? What's your birthday? But they thought, let's make this fun. Let's make it a party game for public figures, and that makes it a little bit more fun. Now, it ends up being the prime minister, and I don't think that, you never know what you're going to need, but I don't think, as I scroll here, that Nokhost Vazir is going to be a word that's going to be a huge bang for my buck in, like, my first interactions in Persian. But it's there, might as well add it. I see off topic, but I use modern Rosetta Stone a lot. What's the difference? They are radically different. Modern Rosetta Stone, that they introduced it right after I started working for them in like 2008, maybe right before then, rather. Then they introduced a 4th version, which is the 3rd version, but with extra stuff. It's fine. Version 2 is the one that everybody hates, that everybody pirated, and they didn't understand it. And it's like, a boy. The boy is under the airplane. The boy is on the table. The boy is next to the table. The boy is next to the airplane. Yada, 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 yada. They started just hardcore with like, here's 3 nouns and we're giving you all of the prepositions, which is like a very weird place to start. Then they're like, here's all the verbs you could possibly want. And like the next lesson, and it's just like, the horses are jumping, the horses are swimming, the people are swimming, the people are jumping. Like just boom, 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 all these verbs. It is not user friendly. It is organized in a way where you were supposed to like direct your own study. And it is organized in terms of like linguistic topics. It is just bonkers. Like it is not, they made a great decision in moving to version 3, which I think is similar to what Duolingo did when they moved to the path, where it takes some of the decision making out and the user just kind of goes with the flow and learns some stuff. But it also had like way more, like 10 times the vocabulary built into the course. And it was all sorts of stuff. You could say offensive things. You could get into like, there was one lesson that was like 40 sentences or more that was like all like mouth verbs and like just wild stuff like lick, whistle, blow, like all the, like anything that you could do, smacking your lips, like it was everything. Just an absolute delight and completely like off-putting to most people, which I know from the years of working there, where people would say like, great, all I learned is like the elephant is standing on the airplane. When am I ever going to use that? I'm like, you're probably never going to use that exact sentence, but don't memorize sentences like a phrase book. What you should be doing is learning the words, learning the structures, and then being able to improvise among them. And that's what we're going to do a little bit of today. I see in the chat people like that. Yeah, I like version 2. I see Darkman. Hey, Jones, how you doing today? I'm all right. I got my coffee. I've already eaten my cookie, my ruggel. So we're ready to go. Okay. So just some vocabulary. So for those of you playing along with the home game, they have introduced this. They have a conversation. I'm going to try saying it myself rather than playing it for you. Also, Shamo Zan Hastid. Are you a woman? Nah. Meliatetun Chie. So Meliat, they've taught, is nationality. Beretanayi Hastam. Like I'm British. Shmo Mota Halid. That one I have to remember. Mota Halid. and I'll probably go back and listen to the audio for this in a second. That is married. Bale, so this person's married. Chanometun kujoi hastan, like where is your wife from? So what I learned here is that chanom is also wife, as opposed to just miss or ma'am. She's also British. Mahale tavalodetun kujost. So there's interesting stuff here. Zevel, I see you writing, and I did tell you that I was going to answer your question. I'm not on YouTube teaching or leading a chavruta on biblical Hebrew. So you can message me somehow on YouTube, and I'll probably get to modern Hebrew on YouTube at some point. Right now, maybe. I don't know. I guess I am doing Persian, so I might as well wait in. Languages are politics independent, and there's all political ends of the spectrum and viewpoints in every language. So we're good. All right. So mahale tavalodetun, can't even say it. Mahal, so place. Mahale tavalodetun kujost, and I have to break that down. So you see me stumbling over this. So tavalod is birth. So tavalodetun, your birth. Mahale tavalodetun, place of your birth. Kujost, kujost, where? Landan. Sargarmi hotun shie. So this I love because sar is your heart. Garmi is warm. So like, what are the things that warm your heart? What are your hobbies? And we have muziki, varzesh, and motale. Motale. Reading. Which this one, the way I'm going to remember this is literally le, pardon the handwriting. It sounds like reading in a Romance language. Muziki, I do not have to like work hard to memorize. And varzesh, I'd heard enough times. I see in the chat, Khanum is actually the polite way of saying wife. The normal way would be Zen, right? Which is like many languages, most Germanic languages, Yiddish, English used to do this. Although now I think it's considered a little bit crass if I say like, my woman is at home, as opposed to Khanum. So sargarmi hotun shie. Sargarmi is hobbies, and we have a choice here. So I'm learning a few. And then we get like korman hastam is a public servant. And then we start getting to stuff that's like less useful, pelake da. So, plaque 10 on Downing Street. So, covered some of this stuff. I've been memorizing these. Nochost Vazir I looked at because it's Prime Minister. It turns out Nochost is just like another word for first, which we have Aval. I see my favorite Yiddish word is, what is that? Yeah, gornisht. Garnished. Garnished in English, not a Yiddish word. Garnished is a favorite, which is nothing for those who don't speak Yiddish. So, Sada's head. Oh, what warms your head? Why am I writing left to right? Because why not? I'm just transliterating all this for my own ease of use. What is heart in Persian? I knew Sar was head because Hamsar is the same head, right? You're the same head of the household, equal head of household. One of the things I like about this book that I've seen so far is that they really bring back a lot of the vocabulary a few different places. So they've introduced charab a few times, and I start seeing it elsewhere. Also, so I talked about some of this stuff like un or on as a plural that can be used for people. So mardan is men, dustan is friends, or dustun, I guess. And then you can do it for like khub versus like khuban or khubun is the good ones, right? Bozorgan is the great people, the great ones, the greats. So went through 3. That was fun. We also have a little bit of a polite thing visiting somebody. So Aghaye Moris Hamkaram. That is he is my colleague. Hamkar, same work. So I'm noticing ham is really, really versatile, really, really useful. Del or qalb is heart. Okay, so qalb from Arabic, and del is probably the the Persian one. I see in the chat, do I remember what nazdik means? Naughty mnemonic. It is nearby. It is close. So nazdike kalbeman is where I keep all the mnemonics, close to my heart. Don't know if that's idiomatically like valid in Persian, but I'm having fun. So va ishun khanomam hastan. So ishun, they, but it's the polite singular they. They're my wife. So this is my wife. I have to remember that. Ishun khanomam hastan. Khosh vakdam. So nice to meet you. Manam hamintor apartmane qashangi dorid. I'm just starting over on everything. I think everybody has thought of the same naughty mnemonics. Actually, this is when I talk about memorization and language learning. I like so Gabriel Weiner. I don't know about his app. I haven't used it, but his book Fluent Forever. This will tell you how long ago this was. I was at a Barnes and Noble. I picked it up off the shelf, and I picked it up to make fun of it because I was like, this is going to be dumb. This is one of those, like, learn a language in 3 months, internet polyglots. Like, what does he know? And I skimmed through it, and I was like, this is actually really good. The approach to phonology is really good. One of the things that he points out in his book, and he's getting from the academic literature, is that there are certain things that are triggers to memory. And it's things that kind of work their way in before you get to the prefrontal cortex. So I sometimes teach a class on unconscious bias in my real life. And sometimes, implicit cognitive processes by the NSF now. So, people don't get upset at the term unconscious bias. And one of the things that happens is as you're processing information, you process through the amygdala and then the hippocampus and then the hypothalamus. And there's all these, like the cingulate gyres, all this stuff before you get to conscious thought in the prefrontal cortex. And the thing that they all share in common is things like fear, arousal, and I don't mean arousal like sexual arousal, although that can be part of it, but just like physiological arousal. So that's fear, excitement, that is sex, drugs, rock and roll, like all the things that destruction, violence, things that really get your heart rate going. That stuff's directly related to memory. It can also be like warm, fuzzy feelings in love. So again, like we're going back to, this is 2 Proust mentions in one live stream, but that the dunking his Madeleine in his tea brought back this flood of emotions. It's he's actually onto something there. There's a bunch of neuroscience books that explicitly talk about Proust as sort of a hook for their readers. So using something like a naughty mnemonic, using something like violence, using something just vivid, something on fire, exploding, bleeding, sexual, drug-related, it will make it fresher in your mind. Now, you may be then creating a world for yourself in which you are surrounded by violence and sex and, maybe it's not the world that you want to inhabit, but it does work for memorizing things. Okay. I see that's why you remember the words you embarrass yourself by screwing up. The first italki session I did in Hebrew, I could not remember bekarov, which is Hebrew for soon. It's literally like in nearby, like in close. And gone from my head. I will never forget that. It comes to mind when you say embarrassing yourself, like, bekarov. And I'll probably embarrass myself again, bekarov. All right, so man hamentor apartmane qashangi dorid. Motshakeram, that's borrowed from Arabic. Lotf dorid, which is you have kindness, which I'm glad. I've heard that in a bunch of different places and nobody ever translates it directly, so I'm glad that they did that here. Lotf dorid. Persian to have. This is where they got into the present stem in the past. This is great. This is way earlier than I've seen it in other courses. And I really, really, really like their approach to this because they've made it a little bit easier. I see, do you prefer Persian in the Latin script? For Persian script, I prefer Persian in the Latin script for memorizing it for myself. And that is that I just I have much more facility with the Latin script. And in a transliteration like this, it is much easier for me to remember like B-U-D-A-N, Budan, than for me to remember a new script and a new word. And the new script doesn't have the vowels. So it's just a lot more cognitively taxing. And this is, I think, the way to learn a little bit faster is eliminate the cognitive load. Learn the language. When you know the language, go back and learn the writing system. I love Persian calligraphy. I love it, love it, love it. It's a different problem than being able to speak Persian, and it will slow me down tremendously. I see. This is why I remember the swear words in Dutch. Exactly. Amazon says there's a newer edition of the book. I am using the edition in the link. Feel free to use the newer edition. It's probably better. I haven't seen many typos or anything, but I'm sure there's things they've changed. So all Persian verbs end with an, budan, doshtan. They have two stems or roots, the present stem and the past stem. I like that we have tree. I'll put this back on screen. I like that we have tree metaphors for all of this. By the way, it's roots and stems and so on. The past is regularly obtainable from the infinitive by omitting the last two sounds an. So the way that I would actually analyze this, a little bit more like a linguist, is to say that the an is a suffix that is a marker that indicates the infinitive, and that it's with the past that dosht is like the main thing that a bunch of things branch off from. I would think dosht is the root, and then I can say doshtan for the infinitive. I can say doshtam, like I gave. I can add suffixes. I can add prefixes that affect that. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that. So like doshte, like having given, I guess. Midosht, would that be like was giving? Somebody can tell me? I see. Somebody said one real naughty mnemonic is a synonym of tanha, which was alone, lonely, sol, which whatever works for you. And if you have a story around it, that is fine. So, cool thing about Persian, cool if you're a linguist, maybe if you are trying to rush through it, it's less fun, but the present stem and the past stem are like not predictable from one another. So budan is hast, doshtan is dar. I initially started studying Persian with Rosetta Stone years and years and years ago, and they start with like the present progressive. So I'm so used to like, like man doram, I don't know, midavand or something like it. There's some word there where it's like, I'm so used to hearing like man doram, to dori, et cetera, et cetera. So let's see, man moshin doram. This is, how you say it. So you have the noun. Notice it's not man yek moshin doram, which would specify I have one. So that's just something I'm trying to keep in mind here, that I just don't need an indefinite marker unless I'm specifying, exactly. To machine dori, u machine dare, ma machine darim, shoma machine darid. I'm certain I'm going to have some kind of weird accent, but hopefully I'll be understandable. To negate it, you negate the verb, right? You use na, which is, I'm sure, it's got to be related to stuff in other European languages, right? Like, it has to be. And that one, spoiler alert, there's phonological changes when you get to the progressive. So if it comes before me, you get nami instead of nami, which is just a totally normal language thing. Let's see, stress is shifted over to na. That's also really normal. If negation is in the sentence, a lot of languages, you emphasize the negation, because why would you not? Let's see, dropping, yeah, good stuff in the chat. I see Persian is agglutinative. I'm not sure I would classify it exactly that way. It's not agglutinative to the extent that like Turkish is, for instance. It does have some sort of more like there's a range from like totally agglutinative to like not at all, where Chinese is sort of one end of the range, or Vietnamese is one end of the range, and Turkish is another. This is sort of in the middle. So I don't think most linguists would feel comfortable classifying Persian as like an agglutinative language, even though it does have some pretty straightforward, like, prefixes, suffixes, and you build a word out, but you don't build a whole sentence out that way. Let's see, Shamo Chan Sol Darid. So I'm going to remember Sol because it sounds like the word for the sun. I hear thank you. My accent's good. I appreciate that. Let's see. Make these negative. Let's do it. Man telefon doram. So man telefon na doram. I feel like that probably sounds like I don't have a phone. So I'm guessing it's more likely, for those of you who know, that I'd say like telefon na doram. Um, Belit nadori. U bisto panj. I've heard some people say panj, so I'm not sure if that's a thing. U bisto panj sol dore. So he or she is 25 years old, has 25 sol years, I guess. 1 year to go around the sol. So u bisto panj sol nadore. Let's see. Mo otage khali darim. So we have vacant rooms. Nadarim. This is where I get bored, right? And the thing that is the problem with this is that I should be learning these new words here, right? Like uno puldoran. I don't think they taught this. This is money, and so I should say uno punnadoran. Shamo vakt dorid. Like I learned the expression "you have time," so shamo vakt nadorid. But it's really hard to just, cause like, okay, I'm adding nah. Okay, boring. Cardinal numbers. I've been going over this. I will not subject you all to numbers because it is not the most fun thing in the world. I see Indo-European languages always have the one unpredictable part. Exactly. One thing that I like, okay, before I move on from the numbers though, there's yek, dose, chor, panj, or panj, shesh, or shish. Chahor, notice it says colloquially chor. H's disappear cross-linguistically. Like that's I'm probably going to make a shirt and just wear that to conferences. It says H's disappear. There's also this fun bit, haft and hashed. And I think this is like Russian, for instance, where it was a different word before, but by analogy, 7 and 8 got like a little bit closer. I remember my mnemonic for haft being 7 and hashed being 8 when they're very, very close in pronunciation is that 7 is mathematically improbable. 7 is half of 8. You're halfway to 8, I guess from 6. But haft, it's the lesser amount. There's some like phonological shenanigans that I'm going to skip here. So like, punsda, sunsda, shunsda. And the same with the 100. So sad is 100. That is related to, kentum and cent in French and so on. And then you get to like divist for 200. That's just irregular and I have to memorize it. But it's the kind of thing that languages do irregularly. I will memorize numbers on my own time because I know people watched a live stream of language simp just saying uy for hours on end, but I feel like, frankly, I don't want to do numbers like this. I'm going to plug them all into flashcards. I'm going to use Anki and spaced repetition, and I'm just going to keep it moving. So indefinite and definite articles. There were some questions about this in the chat last time, and I thought it was really interesting. So here they talk a little bit more about informal speech. Machine kharabe, the car is broken. So not any the car. I see in the chat my numbers are so boring. They're so boring. Machine dori, do you have a car? So notice there's no a or the on either of these. It's context. Fine. Appartement, kashange, the flat is nice. Appartement dori, do you have an apartment? If you want to specify the indefinite, colloquially, you'd use ye or yek. I'm guessing it's yek before vowels, more likely, and ye before consonants, more likely, but with some gray area. And then it has in here what somebody was asking about last week. A less colloquial form uses the unstressed suffix e, or ye if it ends in a vowel. So appartemani. Appartemani. A flat. Baba is dad. Baboi is a dad. Donestru is a university student. So Donestru is a university student. And this happens after the whole noun phrase. I, for some reason, thought this was hard before, where it's like appartemani kashangi dorid. You have a nice flat. But we do the same thing in English. Like a nice apartment, right? The modifier comes at one end of the whole thing, and then you have all the stuff. So this is just, it comes at the other end. Appartemani kashangi. So that's nice. I will say, I don't think anywhere in this lesson did they teach me how to say garden, but there is a vocabulary at the end of the book. So that's something that I'll go back and learn. Or better yet, who here speaks Farsi? What's the word for garden? Making my life easier. So this is where it started to actually get fun and interesting, and like Unit 4, Unit 5, Chapter 4, Chapter 5. Khare hafte chekor kardid. So what did you do over the weekend? Hafte is the week. That's 7 days. That's going to make it easier to remember. And achar is the end. So achare hafte chosh gozasht. So that's, I'm skipping around. I already looked at this vocabulary. So gozashtan is to pass. So this is exactly like French, right? C'est bien passé. For those of you who speak French. Achare hafte chosh gozasht. Bale jatun khali bud. This is awesome. This is Ta'aruf. So, last week I was like, this has got to mean place. Jatun is your place, formally. And Khali is empty. Is he Bach? Is Bach? Oh man, that's going to be a hard one. That's got the Ga. Bach is garden. I may just avoid gardens for a little while. So Jatun Khali Bud. Bud, we saw Budan is to be. So this is your place was empty. This is Tarof. This is that like ritualized politeness. It's conventional implicatures if you think about it in pragmatics terms. But it is like Persian to non-speakers of Persian can sound literally translated extremely dramatic. We're starting to get a taste of it here. I love it. So Jatun Khali Bud. Your spot, your place was empty. And we get Hob Chekor Kardid. So what did you do? Kujor Raftid. So they introduce Raftan is to go. That seems just really easy to remember for me because I think of rafts taking people places or going places. Your mileage may vary, but that's enough for me. Shabe Jome Raftim Cinema. And they talk about this in the grammar section later. I find this really interesting. I'm going to go talk about the days of the week as I remind myself of this. So first of all, we got a little bit on verbs here. I'll come back to that. But days of the week. Shambe. Now, it's written with an N. My understanding is that there is what's called regressive assimilation of place, which means that when you have consonant clusters like this, the B is labial, is ba 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 ba, and na is not. And what happens is you get a nasal voiced labial. So you get shambe. And like tambal, I think, is lazy. So it's a pronunciation that's tambal. So shambe, yek shambe, do shambe, se shambe, chor shambe, pan shambe, jom'e. Jom'e is from Islam, from Arabic, al-jumu'ah. And shambe is from Judaism. It is ultimately from the word Shabbat, Shabbos, Sabbath, etc. So I just find this a lot of fun. You have just the history of Mesopotamia all in all in the days of the week. Now, keeping with the Jewish side of things, they teach that to say, where to go? It's to the bottom here. Ruz e Drum E is Friday, so Ruz is day. Nowruz, new day, great name for a holiday. Drum E Ho is on Fridays. Ruz Hoya Drum E on Fridays. And then here you go, Shab e Drum E. Shab is evening. Shab e Drum E is Thursday evening. Drum E is Friday. Shab e Drum E is Thursday evening. This is exactly the way things are talked about in Judaism, where the day starts on the evening. So you have Erev Shabbat, you have Erev Yom Kippur, you have like the thing starts at sundown. Culturally, obviously, cultures change, religions change, political entities change, but you have this really interesting history where to say Thursday night, Shabe Drome. Shabe Shambe is almost like Erev Shabbat. So just kind of an interesting like crossroads here that Persia has always historically been. So going back up, because I got really excited about days of the week, the infinitives end with an. And so they have here raftam, rafti, raft, raftim. Fine, great. Na to negate it. And you have a vowel. There's a little glide that goes in between the vowels. They will also introduce later that oftentimes instead of adding glides to separate vowels, there's just total assimilation. I got distracted by seeing in the Persian calendar days begin at the sunset. Awesome. So this is a Mesopotamian, Levantine, thousands of years of history And you learn it when you want to say, like, I went to the movies on Thursday night. All right, so what did they do? Let's see. And I'm also kind of testing myself now because I haven't looked at the translation again. So Shabe Jomer Raftim Cinema. Notice here it's not Be Cinema Raftim, which is the more formal way. They teach that as well. So they say with verbs of motion, to go, to remain, whatever. You get this like, I went, movies. So Ye filme irani didim. So deed is going to be like we saw an Iranian film, we saw a Persian film. Deed is going to clearly be the past stem for to see. I have no idea how I'm going to remember that. I guess I like mnemonics. Not everybody does. I actually hate that they work for me, but I find them annoying. But I use them because they work. So didim, maybe like, I won't buy something without seeing the deed. And I know the present stem is bean, I believe. So maybe I'll, the purchase. I'm thinking like Jack and the Beanstalk or something. Like the purchase is enacted with a bean. I have no idea. I've seen the deed. I guess for those of you who want naughty mnemonics, seeing the deed can mean something else. Let's light up the amygdala for a second. So Shabe Jomer Raftim Cinema Yek Film Irani Didim. Khub bud. Was it good? Komedi bud. That's a freebie. Comedy. Kheli Khandidam. So Khandidim. Khandid is laughed. This seems a lot like Candide. Probably unrelated, I have no idea, but that'll be a way that I remember it, because Candide is also comedy. There's like a ka-ha kind of relationship over time. I see picture a pair of glasses with ascenders. I thought that and I didn't say it. For memorizing deed, for to see. I'm going to walk out of this live stream with like deed, bean, khandid, like it's going to be locked in. And I thank you all for that. Maybe for those of you who are studying Persian, you get the same out of this. So Shemot Chekor Kardid, what did you do? Chekor Kardid. Panshambe Badazor. So we're getting our times here, right? So fifth day, so it's Thursday, right? Right? Panshambe. No, yeah. Yekshambe is Sunday. Yeah, okay. So Panshambe Badazor Memun Doshtim. Mehmun is a party. Dosht, we already learned, is to have. So we had a party. Right here, this is kind of cool. This is like, I'm just remembering for myself, making a note that this is the same way that we say it in English. You have a party. Mehmun Doshtim. Jashne Tavalod Pasaran Bud. So Jashne Tavalod. So Tavalod we just went over. Jashne, so it's got to be celebration. Jashne Tavalod Pasaran Bud. So it was my father's birthday. I see in the chat, Danish Jew can be split up into don, the stem for to know. That makes sense. Esh turns it into a noun, and Jew is a Sikh, as in Justan. Oh, so a knowledge seeker, Danish Jew. That is great. I love this stuff. I love it. I love the etymologies. Honestly, instead of coming up with dumb mnemonics, a lot of times I just go to Wiktionary and read the etymology, and I'm like, oh, meshki from last week. I haven't studied that, but I remember kuloyam and meshkie because musk. It's musky. Studied ancient Greek in college, and seeing didim mean saw immediately reminded me of verbs like what is it? Edoi? I don't know. It's Greek to me. Mamun is a guest. Memuni is a party. So we had guests. Memun doshtam. So I'm guessing this is the little plural business, the u, meh. So mehm is a guest maybe. Jang Ju is a warrior, a war seeker. This is great. So Ju seekers, Jang Ju. By the way, the when we get to prepositions, which hopefully I'll do soon, there's one that is like an old word for like reins, like an old Iranian word for having your reins is in front of you, and it's literally the word for the reins, like your horse is in front of you. Love this stuff. So Panshambe Barazor Memundashtim, Jashne Tavalod Pasaran Bud, Ba Tavalodesh Mubarak. So we're learning the formulas here, right? Happy birthday, Mamnun. Thank you. Gazot Torbud. How was the food? This is the important question. And the answer, Ali. Dast pocht. So dast pocht is cooking. Dast pocht is shoharam bud. Albate bedun shek. So albate is I don't remember this. Albate is, of course, bedune shak, without a doubt. I see edon is like to look. Oh, yeah, that's close. I see this is not similar to Hebrew. Is it a Semitic language? Nope, not at all. But what it does have, similar to Hebrew, is a direct object marker. Just like et in Hebrew, there's ro in Persian. So let's see. Yeah, it is a distant cousin of English, as was mentioned in the chat. It just has a ton of. It borrowed the Arabic script, and it also borrowed tons and tons and tons of words from Arabic. Just like English has French words from the Norman conquest, Persian has Arabic words from the Arab conquest. Okay, so here's where I was getting confused, because Mehmuni, Khosh Gozasht, and this is saying just Khosh Gozasht, and Gozashtan is a good thing to know. Achare Hafte Khosh Gozasht, Iran Khosh Gozasht, Ta'tilat Khosh Gozasht, which is a great question I have for all of you. If you had any, or I'll ask next week, Ta'tilat Khosh Gozasht. And then the routine answer is Bale Jatun Khali, and you can add bud or not. So they get into some cool stuff here that I mentioned before. Man raftam, man belandan raftam, but I can also say like raftam landan, which is cool. I'm going to skip some of the directional stuff. Not super interesting. If you're learning Persian, obviously do the exercises. But this is where I get a little bit more. We get into light verbs, and that's the last thing I want to talk about as I'm dipping into chapters 5 and 6 this week, making some flashcards. Maybe I'll make some Anki stuff next week, so you can see how I cut up the audio and everything. So achare hafte chosh gozasht. So we're seeing achare hafte again. Chosh gozasht. Tarifi nadasht. So nothing to write home about. No compliments to give. Chetar mageh. Kar echasi nakardam. Now, there's a couple things. One, there are geminates, so I actually have to remember to pronounce this as two S's. Kar echasi nakardam. Tuchune, so in the house, mundam. I'm going to remember this because it's like to remain, to stay. I see like Chinese influence on Japanese. Yeah, there's a lot of this. There's a lot of stuff. So and television tamasha kardam. Achare hafteyeto chetar bud. So this is introducing light verbs. And light verbs are cross-linguistically common. Persian makes a tremendous amount of use of them. English, a little bit. French, a fair amount. But the idea is that the verb is kind of meaningless. I think I mentioned this last week where I talked about doing the dishes. Where the verb is do, but it's meaningless without the second part. So you can do the dishes, you can do the hustle, but it's do is not giving you all the information. Persian does this with kardam, or with kardan. So tamashok kardan, which is like watch television. I'm gonna remember this because it's tam from my shows. Tamasho kardam, and it also uses shodam, which is to become, and there's kind of an interesting asymmetry here. So let's see, bad nabud. We're gonna just keep going. Bad nabud baroya sham. So for dinner, as supermarket, yes sandwich or yes pizza charidam. So charid is to purchase, and we're gonna get this with chord, which is a little close to remember. So man sandevicho chardam. For Zevo, the O here on sandevicho is a shortening of ro. Ro is equivalent to et in Hebrew, exactly. So it marks definite direct objects. That is things like the sandwich. I ate the sandwich. Dustam pizzoro chord. It takes pronouns, takes nouns, like it's exactly like et in Hebrew if you're familiar with that. Bad to sob shatranj, chess. I looked this up because I was curious. It's from the Sanskrit chaturanga, which is 4 limbs, because as everybody knows, every army has 4 limbs: the infantry, the cavalry, the chariots, and the elephants.
So bad tosh sob. So bad to after that. No, bad after that. Tosh sob until morning. Shatranj bazi kardim. So bazi is to play. Kardim is to do. We did a chess play. We did a chess playing, and somebody asked Bordi ya bakhti. Did you win or lose? Moshavi shodim. So we came to a draw. We became even. Now, the last bit that I want to talk about with these verbs is just really fascinating to me. So the largest number of compound verbs are produced with the help of these two verbs. There's also zendan, I think, but kardan and shodan. Kardan is to do or make, so like faire in French, and shodan is to become. And so telephone kardan, you make a phone call. Kor is work. Kor kardan to work. Boz is open. Boz kardan is to open something. But then boz shodan is to become open. So this is like I love this. This is you have the meaning of the thing, like boz is open, and then the verb itself has kardan, whether it's kardan or shodan, will tell you the argument structure. And by argument structure, I mean like how many nouns go with the verb and what their function is around the verb. So like boz kardan is like an agent does, kardan does boz to something, versus with boss shodan, a thing becomes open. I see in the chat asking about present progressive. Does this book present Dashtan immediately after the subject as the present imperfect progressive? I had a root literature book that says it's only colloquial. Yes, and this is colloquial Persian, so it's really focusing on just the spoken. And I think that's in like the next chapter or the chapter after that, which I will absolutely cover. Maybe a little bit for a few minutes, and definitely next week. So here's the thing for me about this: is it's not really like passives. It's more like an unaccusative kind of thing. Like boz shodan is to become open. That's the thing. Like the door, dar boz shodan, show, dar. What is it? Dar boz shod. The door became open. Is the subject is not the agent. The grammatical subject is not the agent that does the action, and instead it is an experiencer. So this is kind of like, or it's a theme. It's something that's acted upon. So it changes the argument structure. It changes the valence. I was thinking of this as sort of passivization, but it's not. There's a different kind of passivization. This is really like Shodan, in this case with Boz, makes it like unaccusative. And to keep my romance language theme, like unaccusatives are the ones that take être or ser in Spanish and être in French, where it's like I fell down, je suis tombé, par terre or whatever it is. That's instead of j'ai tombé, it's unergative. It's something that the subject experiences. The subject is the theme and not the agent that does the thing. And I see in the chat exactly what I was saying. Shodan is used in passive sentences, which means these are not passives. These can be passivized, potentially depending on the situation. So hazer, and then there's a different thing going on here. So hazer kardan, to make ready. I make something ready. Man, whatever it is, hazer kardan. Versus hazer shodan, to get ready, to make yourself ready. It's not really a reflexive. It's that same kind of like change in argument structure. I become ready. I become myself ready. I love this stuff. I see in the chat, I think Shatranj refers to the ancient form of the game before its arrival in Europe versus the modern day, largely finalized in Europe. I think that may be correct, although I do recall hearing that Shatranj is used to describe just regular chess now. And if you regular chess, and if you Google it, or you look on Wiktionary or Wikipedia, or whatever, you're going to get like a picture of a modern sort of European chessboard. But yeah, it is a different version historically, and different etymology. I also went through those etymologies, found like checkmate was supposed to be from like Shahmat, which is like the king is amazed. So just kind of interesting history of the game too. So let's see. Emruz kar kardam. I work today. Dar. It's the exact example I tried to come up with on my own. Dar baz shod. The door opened. Whether, on its own or through the force of somebody else. So we have the compound verbs above. Tamasha kardan. Bazi kardan. So shatranj bazi kardan. And then they have a little bit on ro. Let's see. Arabic follows patterns that make guessing the vowels easier. Yes, doesn't fully. I see you wrote in the chat. Doesn't fully apply to Persian. Let me just check while we're live streaming. I don't know if my wife is watching the live stream. Last time our daughter was waving at me on TV in the other room and very annoyed that I didn't wave back. But I want to see if we're still in nap time or if I need to wrap up. So this is my my coffee study live stream time. And I see in the chat, I was surprised how quickly I could read the script and how the unwritten vowel didn't really throw me like I expected. I feel the same for Persian and for Hebrew. The more you learn the language first, I learn with the transliteration, then I can recognize the words because I already know the words. If I know Boz Kardan, then I can look at it without vowels and I'm fine. If I don't know that and I have to learn both the spelling and that, it's annoying. All right, so I have a few more minutes. What I'm going to do is talk about ro, and for those of you who speak Hebrew, it's the same as et. This is a weird little quirk of Persian. I tried to write a paper about this in my first year in grad school in linguistics. I think the professor was not terribly enthusiastic. She didn't find it all that interesting. I was confused by this. I realize now she was probably right. It's not the most interesting thing in the world, but it was sort of very new and unique to me. Okay, let's see. Yeah, just checking my text here. So it is a direct object. For those of you, hopefully everybody knows what a direct object is, but we were talking about argument structure. So it's like I, verb, something. It's a thing that's acted on. So like I give a book to Dave. The to Dave, that's indirect object. And the book, that's the direct object. So in this case, it's indefinite as I give a book. But if I say I gave the book, if it's a book that we already know about, we've been talking about books, I said, here's a book that I'm talking about, and then I'd say I gave the book, that book, to so-and-so, then that is definite. Definiteness is there's a great book about definiteness. There's a lot that can be said about it. It is a very interesting sort of semantic and syntactic property. There's all different ways we can think about it. For our purposes today, we can just say it's things that you already know are under discussion. And that includes things like proper names. Some languages actually mark that. So like Portuguese, right? Instead of saying like Johnny is João, you have like o João, the Johnny. I think Italian does that too, il Johnny. And so, not all languages do that, but that's definite. It's like the Dave, the one that we're talking about. Pronouns, definite. And then the noun is definite. Usually like this, that, those kind of things are definite as well. So I bought Peter a sandwich. That is not definite. He ate the sandwich. Boom. This is where it gets raw. This is where it gets at. This is where it gets a definite direct object marker. So he ate the sandwich that we're already talking about. It's being acted upon by the verb, right? It is the object of the verb. And it is definite. It gets a the. So in Persian, this gets ro. Now, an interesting thing, and I think I'm going to see if I can do a corpus study of this, is there's some interesting variation here. So informally, it gets reduced to ro after vowels and o after consonants. I think they say if it's likely to cause confusion in the book, they'll use ro. So yek sandwich or yek pizza charidam. I bought a sandwich and a pizza. Man sandwich or chordam. I ate the sandwich. Dustam pizza or chord. My friend ate the pizza. Now, this is where I get to my I think I want to do a study with the Linguistics Data Consortium corpus of Farsi phone conversations. They have some verbs where they say nego kardan, to look. These seem to be verbs of perception, but that I'll need to dig into this. And maybe somebody's already done this study. Gush kardan, to listen. There's alternation between whether it uses ro or whether it uses a preposition. So be man negokard, like she looked at me, or mano negokard, she looked at me. Either one. So be man, to or at me, versus man. So this is like in one, it's an indirect object with a preposition that gives it case, and in the other, it is a direct object that requires this case marker because it's a definite direct object. So be harfeman gushna she didn't listen to my advice, versus harfemano gushna I'm suspecting, I mean, the two examples they gave are seeing and listening, so I'm starting to think, hey, this might be verbs of perception. And I'm very curious about whether this relates to age, gender, geographic location, what kind of, I don't know. It seems like it's not going to be the anything phonological that'll affect it, but maybe there's something like, what kind of noun phrase it is, if it's harfe man versus man or something like that. These are the kind of things that, make for a decent corpus study in sociolinguistics. So you heard it here first. I call dibs. If you are a linguist and you work on Persian, then you didn't hear anything. And if you are asked to peer review something later, just forget that we had this conversation. Because I'm thinking this is really interesting. And this is the way that I've been approaching. I mean, I got a publication out of this in the past. I was confused by Persian. I did a phonological study and I, got that published. Didn't speak Persian any better, but I have another line on my CV. So I think for today, I may just leave it with the raws and stuff. I see, man ob. I drank a lot of water. Man ob siad khardam. Man in ob. So this water, right? Like I said. Man in ob, I guess obo. Man in obo nachardam chon garm bud, because it was warm. Garm, the ga is like wa in English. You see this with French as well. So wasp and gep gep is French for wasp. Guillaume, William. It's kind of fun to see in Persian too. So garm is warm. All right, I'm going to take a look at the chat, and then I'm going to wrap up and just keep working on Persian. I'm going to start trying to say more, to communicate more. I'll probably, over the next few weeks, start doing, some lessons online where I talk to people. But the plan is 2 chapters a week, offload the memorization to reading the book on the subway, reading the book when I feel like it, doing live streams, and then also just making some Anki cards, which I'll do with the audio. I'll cut that up. That'll probably be the focus of next week's live stream. All right, so let's see. Check me from Shamat Shamord. Yeah, the king is dead. The Wiktionary says that it's actually contrary to popular belief. The king is surprised is the origin, and then that changed. Let's see. Some languages mark if you've seen something or not, if you were there. Yes, evidentials. Really cool stuff. A lot of Native American languages do that. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense for a Semitic language because they don't have those templates. Yes, Indo-European languages. Sorry, because they have those templates. Indo-European languages don't. Correct. Let's see. Learning vocab transliterated and then recognizing in the abjad makes total sense. Thank you. This is, it's so much easier. It's less to process. And the name of the game is like getting more of the language as usefully as possible into my head. And then I can read it later. I don't have to memorize this. And I can read the script. If you put this in front of me without the transliteration, I can stumble through like man, emruz, but I don't need to right now. Is it better to call Persian than Farsi? I joined late. That is hugely contentious. Different people have different feelings about it. And I really, I don't know. For those of you who are native speakers, my understanding is in the language itself, it's Farsi. But people in English will often call it Persian. It's like calling it Deutsch instead of German, I think. Thanks to everybody. Direct object markers, all sorts of good conversation happening here. I see I've been thoroughly enjoying these live streams. Thanks for doing them. Brent, thank you. I really appreciate you. And hopefully you guys didn't get any ads today. I think I set it up so that you don't. There'll be ads when people watch it on the replay, but this should have been ad free for everybody who was here live. So let's see. I didn't get to ask this on the vowel stream, but is there a phoneme that is a combination of wa and u, or like, I'm not sure if I understand the question, or R and Y. You mean W and Y like wa and ya, or do you mean like w and u? Not sure if I understand the question. I see fun to watch as a Farsi speaker. Nazanin, thank you. And no, and Nadia, I don't think it's a big controversy. It's just, people have feelings, but it's like saying, Iranian versus Persian versus, Farsi versus Persian, like for the names of the people, names of the language. This stuff is always a little bit contentious. As somebody who is not a native speaker, I think I get a little bit of leeway, but people might tell me that they prefer one or the other. I tend to hear Persian and English and Farsi, Befarsi, but your mileage may vary. I see articulating R and Y or W and Y simultaneously. R and W simultaneously is a thing that definitely happens in a lot of British dialects, and in some like North American, like I know there are even people in like Brooklyn who say like ruh. Some Brits have, like British linguists, have written about W as a secondary articulation for an R, where people say like really, which I'm overdoing. But yeah, W and Y simultaneously is, I think, not possible. In part, this is a great question because W is supposed to have a secondary articulation of like the tongue up and back and the lips rounded. So Y, the tongue is in a different configuration. All right, so with that, I'm going to say thank you all and Happy New Year. Don't know how to say that yet, but somebody can leave it in the chat. I know Nowruz is the Persian New Year, but I don't yet know what the sort of generic pseudo-secular New Year is in Persian, so I'll wait a second to see if anybody wants to add that. I see in the chat, how does one become a linguist? Is there still room for new linguists? Those are great questions. So studying academic linguistics is the way that one does it, and then publishing. I am agnostic about whether or not you actually have to do a PhD. Some people are like, you're only a linguist if you have a PhD in linguistics. I don't think that's accurate. In fact, some of my friends don't have PhDs and we publish. Making it through peer-reviewed double-blind peer review for publication and contributing to our knowledge of language, that in my mind makes anybody a linguist. Whether there's room for more linguists is, there's a lot of linguists. There are not jobs in academia, that's for sure. There's a lot of vicious infighting over what few jobs there are. A lot of vicious politics. There's a book called The Linguistics Wars to give you an idea of what linguistics is like. But to learn the skills, to contribute to our understanding of language knowledge, I think anybody can do that. And I encourage more people to to do that, to learn linguistics as opposed to, just studying language to speak it. Saleno. Come on, I should have been able to do that myself. Saleno Mubarak. So to everybody here, I had a great time. I don't know if I can say Hele Khoshvaktam for that. But merci, Hele Mamnune, and Saleno Mubarak to everybody. So again, merci, Saleno Mubarak, and Khudafez.